My guest today is Kay Nixon, and we've had this beautiful conversation around books bringing communities together and giving us an opportunity to experience things and travel to places that we may not ordinarily go to. Kay, how can people find you?
Well, people can find the bookshop up the lane on Little Main Street in Palmwoods, or they can find us on social media with Facebook. We have the Little Book Nook on Little Main.
It's a wonderful conversation. I'm Robin Cook. This is Stories from the Red Couch. I know you'll love it. I was an avid novel reader and I just devour them. And then I struck on philosophy kind of books, Jung, Joseph Campbell, Thomas More, those sorts of people. And suddenly I stopped reading novels. I'd really like to read them again, but there's some element of me that feels like it's a self-indulgence. As a bookstore owner, Kate, could you help me get back into reading novels again? How would you do that?
Well, I think it's all right to have a bit of indulgence because you need your downtime in life. But I think one of the wonderful things about reading novels is that you get an opportunity to fly to another country, to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, to experience things that you might not be able to experience in life normally. If it's a well-written book, you'll actually really learn something important if it's well-researched. And I think that really helps you to develop empathy and to understand things that you want to be able to grasp without it being just factual information. In a more palatable way, you can absorb information because you become engrossed in the characters, and so there's an emotional connection to what you're reading about. And it takes you on a bit of a journey, but without having to be in any danger or cost, other than the cost of the book. You know, you're able to experience those things. And I think empathy is a really important thing that we need in the world today. So if you're able to do that and experience what someone else is going through in their own journey, then you understand them a bit more. And sometimes fiction, I find, can do that. Or it might even just stretch your mind to other possibilities. Like,
sure, and firing up your own imagination to lead you on to doing something creative yourself.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
And then understanding how other people think, I guess, in storytelling through millennia, that's what we've done, haven't we?
It's such an important part of our culture, of all cultures.
All cultures.
And particularly in this country. I mean, storytelling is such an important thing, whether it's verbal or written. It is really intrinsic to a culture to pass on those stories. And as we share stories, as we meet with people and as we try to deepen our connection with people and our relationships, we do that through telling stories about ourselves and about other things in our lives, and it creates bonds and connections of commonality, or just, I guess, respect too for other people, because you understand more of their life, and that's a good thing.
So you've just opened a bookstore, haven't you?
Yes,
That's so exciting. I'm just so thrilled for you.
Oh, thank you.
The Little Book Nook.
Yes.
On Little Main Street.
What else could it be called?
I know. In Palmwoods. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, in this day of Amazon and all of internet shopping and all of those sorts of things, to have a little shop where people can go and have that experience. How have you found customers responding to you?
Really positively. They come in and I love seeing the children look up and seeing the flying books or the different things around, and sort of just, there's a little bit of magic there and enchantment, and people have been very, very encouraging and excited about it. There's been a real buzz about it, which has been really encouraging for us, and to know that those people are still reading and excited about the idea of a little bookshop.
And bringing their children in, because predominantly it's
children. So
book.
we've got children's books on one level, and then there's a little raised level which we have for the grown-ups, and a selection up there of fiction and non-fiction. and backlists and classics, but also, you know, new releases and things. But yes, children's reading has actually increased in Australia, and while the sale of books has dropped off somewhat over the last couple of decades, it's starting to go back up, and children's books are one of the areas that has actually increased. There's been a real push for children to get back into reading, get off devices,
screens,
and also we've got some really good Australian authors and illustrators that have been working at this for years. I remember, must be about 15 to 20 years ago, working at Just Imagine Bookshop, where there was a launch for books that a group of men authors in Australia had brought out a number of books where they were really encouraging boys to read, and they have done it. They've made it cool to read again, you know. And now we've got people like Andy Griffiths and Ando and people who have appealed to their humour, but still often take them on a journey of understanding important things in life and some warmth in them as well. And kids are devouring them.
That's wonderful. How do you feel about, when I was a kid, it didn't seem to be very many children's books at the time in the, you know, the mid-60s. But then as I grew older and as our kids came along, there's sets of books that become part of the culture of reading in an area. How does that play out now? Are there still, Bolligum was a favourite for us to read to our kids, and Diary of a Wombat and those sorts of books. Do you find that books still give that sense of culture to a generation?
Definitely, and you get that nostalgia when people come in and they see some of the classics are still in print, or things that they've remembered from their childhood, whatever. And there's that, but there's also still those sort of waves of excitement of certain books coming out, and you see that generating through. It's still happening now, and well, Nevermore, when that came out, you know, that was a huge thing. People were lining up to get them, and I couldn't wait to get the next one. And there are trends that still happen, and kids will be following certain series and can't wait to get the next one. And I remember that as a kid, getting books out of the library and with our friends, you know, who's read the next one in that series, and that still happens. And I think that's really, really good to see that. It's a shared experience, I think. There's something about that. And
that's what binds us in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And that's why book clubs have increased. There are so many book clubs around now. I've had so many people come in the shop already wanting to join a book club, and people are in book clubs in Palmwoods and beyond because they love coming together and talking with people about, as I was saying, fiction, in things that it just gets you to talk about issues that might be a bit deeper than you might normally talk about with someone, or just learn something that people have got different opinions on, and it starts off interesting conversations, you know, and people get to know each other better, and that's all good. It's all part of community and connecting, isn't it? I guess.
What sort of books do you have for teenagers? Have you got any teenage?
Yes, do have teenage books. In fact, I'm very fond of teenage books because I think they get to the point really quickly.
Oh, good.
And my niece is a young adult author, and
that's exciting.
Yeah, she's been sending me proof copies of her work over the years.
Wonderful.
And one of the books that she sent me, I said, you've got to send this off to a publisher, and she did, and she was published last year, and they actually said they'd do 3 books. They signed up for a contract, and it did incredibly well. It was shortlisted for the ABIA Awards, and she was the library's choice of the month back when it came out, the month it came out last year, and she's done really well. So that's the first time I've been acknowledged in a book. It was a really, really lovely thing to be Auntie Kay in the acknowledgements in the back. So I nearly cried when I read that.
I bet you did. I bet you did. Because you've got a lot of experience in books. I mean, you've been working in bookstores for a long time, haven't you?
30-something years.
30-something
years. My
years?
first job out of uni.
Really?
Yeah, I was working in a bookshop in Sydney, Book and Cranny, and ended up managing it. Yes, and then in London, HK Lewis and Medical Bookshop, and then back here in a few different ones, so it's been ongoing.
So what sort of experiences have people had in books that really stand out in your mind?
I love seeing children grow up through when I've been in a bookshop long enough that have come to me with their parents and their parents saying they're not reading, what can we do? And then I find out what that child is passionate about and find a book that has that passion in it and get them to read it, and then they're off and running. And then they, you know, you follow them through the years, and then maybe 10 years later they're off at uni studying poetry or something, you know, and they're devouring books. Or I still remember a lady coming in who I've stayed friends with, who came in at Books of Budrum before it moved up the road when I was first there, and she was really upset because her son was struggling at school and being bullied, and I still remember having a really good talk with her and showing a book that was about being bullied, but it was a novel set in Australia, and she took that and she had a few tears and had a hug and off she went, and her son ended up being diagnosed with Asperger's, and she moved to another school where they were able to treat that better, and he went on to, he's doing really well now at university, and she used to come back in every now and then and to the shop and remind me of that, and it's so heartwarming and encouraging. Those sorts of experiences happen quite often, you know, in shops. It's so much more than retail, because books somehow, because people come in and ask questions about certain genres of books, somehow they allow you to talk about things on a deeper level, because you're often talking about all sorts of subjects, and someone might come in and want something for someone who's grieving or whatever, you know, and you just start to create those bonds. And that was one of the sad things when the other shop closed, you know, that I was in, the last one, Books of Budrum. It was a lot of people really, really sad, like crying and hugging and or angry even. Yes. Because of that, it had been something they were really connected to, was that shop.
So I guess they're coming to you and they're finding out about you now at the Little Book Nook.
Yes, some knew about it, and some have come in and then go, oh, it's you, and then they come in and they realise the connection, and then they'll tell their friends, which is lovely.
That is a lovely thing, because look, just to talk about Palmwoods for a second, because we're both Palmwoods people, aren't we? We love Palmwoods. But what a fantastic location.
Yes, it's been my favourite spot all along.
It's
anyway.
It's astonishing, Kay. I mean, it's a coup to get that little...
We just were sitting there and looked over and saw the lease sign and thought, wouldn't that make a lovely children's bookshop? And then it happened.
A brave and bold move.
Yes, I guess it was. Some would say reckless.
Oh, well.
I hope it works out being brave and...
But so far, people have really come behind you to support
They've been really supporting. And I've also got the connections with the schools that I did contact a lot of them before I put in the proposal, because I used to supply to a lot of schools Books of Budrum, and the teachers would come to me and the teacher librarians, and I checked with them first whether they would need a supplier still, and they said, yes, we missed you, we'll come.
Wonderful.
So that was really encouraging. Quite a few got back to me immediately, so that made me think, well, it's going to be more than just people walking through the door.
And that's exactly right. So you need to be that multifaceted, don't you?
So class sets and
I had a conversation here with a fellow called Colin Graham a while ago, and he was saying that a bookstore that he had visited would act almost like a shoe shop, where the person would come in and sit down, and the shop assistant would say, well, what types of books? What types
customised
what sort of topics are you interested in? And go off and gather books to come back.
Yes, well, that's what you get to do when you've been in one place for long enough. You get to know your customers, so you actually do your buying according to your customers. So when you see the books that are coming out from the reps and the companies, you say, oh, well, Marge would love that, or such would love that, or, you know, and you think of people, and we used to do that all the time.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because you really are having your customer as a friend.
Yes.
And first and foremost in your mind. So you're really thinking about them as you do that.
Yes.
And so where you're located is across from Homegrown Cafe, so people can have a coffee and...
Yes, it's a lovely symbiotic relationship.
Beautiful.
You know, and they always say coffee and books go together, but they're two very different skill sets.
Yes.
And actually in the one place they don't always
Always
go. Then
work.
you have different needs and licenses and things too. So for me, it's just worked out really well, and I'd like to hope too that I'm generating more for Sarah as well, with
Yes.
the homegrown and the other shops in that
Well,
street.
and that's the beautiful thing about Palmwoods, I think, is that it tends to draw people
Yes.
from a wide net,
Yes.
doesn't it?
It's becoming a destination.
It is a
and that's what
destination.
we're really working at. We've got to make this spot a destination, and we
Yes.
want to make the shop enchanting and a destination for people to come in and want to have a look and have an experience.
Yes.
And I think that area now is that once they come into that lane and see the gardens around and the buzz there of people, and I look out the window and see families playing together and enjoying the gardens and dogs, and it's just really lovely. It's what community's about. It's
It is
special.
It is. I'm going to segue quickly for a little bit because you started the community gardens in Palmwoods as well, didn't you?
Yes.
How's that going now?
Really well. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Another way to connect with people,
And it's just around the corner, isn't it?
It is.
From the
It
bookshop.
is. It's lovely, and yeah, it's all sort of interconnected. I think, in a sense,
For
might
sure.
seem different to some people, but to me, it's all about connecting with people on a deeper level, and enriching your life, and whether it's
Nourishing on many levels, isn't it?
Yes, nourishing the soul and the mind and the body. All those things, I think, you can do with that, and so.
Wonderful. How would people find out about you, Kay? Have you got a website? Have you got social media?
Website is being done. It's not up there yet, but it's being done. Social media, we've got Facebook has been extremely exciting the way that's taken off, and my husband Tony's really done a great job with that, I must say. And then some of the things people just have shared so much that it's received a lot of publicity through that. So they're probably the main
best thing.
things.
So that's the
Yes.
Little Book Nook?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
On social media, on
Yes,
Facebook.
and it's regularly getting updates on things that are coming up, and there are already events happening. With the Spring Harvest happening in September, we've got the Pom Pom Palace coming, which is storytelling and pom pom making.
Yes.
What could be better?
Yes, with Jane.
That'll be outside,
Yes.
with Jane, and so that's good. There's a colouring competition happening during that time as well, and then the prize will be some books on drawing and things like that.
Good. So plenty for people to come along and
Yes,
participate
yes. Oh,
in.
and we're planning to have a lot of author events and storytelling time and
Wonderful.
all sorts of things that'll be fun for the kids and for the grown-ups.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
So nice to chat and find out more about the bookshop. Thank you for joining us. You'll find Kay in Palmwoods, the Little Book Nook, but also the Palmwoods Community Garden.
Always happy to get new members.
Yeah, so there's plenty to be involved with. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next week.
Well, they can come and visit us at the Little Book Nook in Little Main, up the lane. But also we're on social media, and we have the Little Book Nook on Little Main is our social media website, Facebook page, and I'll just say that to you.